Coming up, the 2025-26 season could be a make or break year for Noah Clowney. I'll tell you what he needs to do to lock down a place in Brooklyn's long-term plans.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. This show is 100% free on all those great platforms. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And on today's show, I'm going to be outlining why this coming season could be a make or break year for Noah Clowney. I'll analyze his strengths, weaknesses, and what fans should be hoping to see from the 2023 first-round pick. And joining the pod now, we got Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily back, continuing our series talking about the Nets rotation pieces from last season and whether we think the returning guys are going to be long-term fits with the team. And Lucas, today we're talking about Noah Clowney, who's entering his third NBA season. He spent most of his first year in the G League, came up at the end of the year, really had that encouraging stretch, where I think was probably the most exciting thing about that 23-24 season last year. Had some encouraging flashes, had some struggles, battled ankle injuries throughout the year. But when you think about Noah, he's entering his third season. Some would say somewhat of a, gut check, make or break year, at this point in his rookie contract, and that's going to be faced with a decision soon. Temperature check, where are you at with him and your confidence level that he's going to be a long-term NBA piece and a long-term piece for the Nets?
I'm not out or in. I think let's put it that way. I'm on the fence, and I'm very willing to give him the benefit of the doubt just because he's still, this will be his age 21 season, I believe. And he was doing better last year before he had to deal with like 4 ankle injuries. He never got a chance to build up that momentum. It's rare to see what he did in that, it's April, it's his rookie year, whatever. But I'm really interested to see him, as I am really all the Nets young players, but I hope he gets like as close to 2,000 minutes as possible. At least 1,500, I hope, even more so than some of the rookies, which I know maybe sounds crazy, but like they can play in Long Island. I need to see if Noah has anything more to his game beyond what we've seen. So I would say, if anything below 5 is, I don't think he'll be an NBA, a valuable NBA player, and anything above it is I'm in. I'm like a 5.5, like right on the fence, but kind of wanting to give the benefit of the doubt, I think.
Yeah, and I think I fall on a similar plane to that. And when you look at what Noah did at the end of his rookie year, and it's March, April basketball, you always need to kind of, throw that in there and take that with a grain of salt. But he looked like a guy who was a natural 3-point shooter. He was defensively, like he had a 6-block game. He was doing some really great things there. And the Nets made a decision in that rookie year. They played him almost exclusively at center with Long Island, and then he came up to Brooklyn. And it seems like they made a decision like he's going to be a 4, he's going to be a power forward. We don't think his best spot is center long term. And he had those encouraging two-way stretches. And then last season, let's start offensively. Like he comes out and he shot 39% from 3 on like 5 attempts per game over his first 23 appearances. And I think he appeared in 46. And a lot of those, second half, he was struggling with the ankle injury. So we can say while he was healthy, 23 appearances, he was close to 40% from 3 on high volume, which is not nothing. Like it looked really encouraging. He had some games there where that was, a big deal. So the 3-point shooting, like, are you a believer? Do you think that it's real? Do you think the stroke is something that he'll be able to maintain on, somewhat high volume? Because if he's going to play power forward in the NBA long-term offensively, that's really just like a non-negotiable. He needs to be able to space the floor.
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, I don't know what the exact percentages in volume will be, but just that he's gotten off to this volume early in his career. And I mean, you see it, teams close out. It's not a red alert, but teams are not leaving him open. They close out. And I think, the more interesting question that we'll get to is what happens when they do close out. But yeah, I believe it. And, also just anecdotally, eye test, like the fan caller perspective is it looks good. Like he looks like he can shoot. He is confident. He blah, blah, blah. He's made some deep ones. He's made some kind of off movement ones. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the 3-point shooting. I don't think he'll be Ryan Anderson, but I don't, just get like power forward, whatever. But he'll shoot. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I think the confidence is a big thing. I think the Nets coaching staff has really made it a point to instill that confidence. Like we talked to a lot of people last year. Like I think Zaire Williams is a good example of saying, I think he didn't always know where he stood, offensively in Memphis. And then he comes here to Brooklyn last year and he said that like he was being encouraged to take some attempts by the Nets coaching staff where he was like, I don't think this is a good look. And they were like, he was saying they're like, shoot it. Like, we don't care. Just like put it up. And Noah seems to have really embraced that. And before he struggled with some ankle injuries, was efficient. So the stroke is, good. But if he's going to play power forward in the NBA long term, he needs to be able to do things outside of that, obviously. And that's where the real questions seem to come into play. It was a question in Alabama. And then you look at it with the NBA this last season, and it's like when he's run off the 3-point line, when he has to be, put the ball on the floor, when he has to do things off script, it was just really bad there. Like you look at his splits last season, he was, for a guy who's 6'9", 6'10", he was so reliant on 3-point shooting. Like you look at the numbers, 65% of his shots came from three, 21% of his shots came at the rim. And even with it being such low volume at the rim or just on twos, he shot 41% on twos. For a player his side, just like astronomically bad.
The fact that 35% of his shots are twos feels insane. It feels way too high. Like I can't even remember any of his twos.
Yeah, me neither, honestly. I mean, they didn't go in. Like I just said, he shot 41% on twos. Like he's a guy who's 6 foot. He's close to 6'10". Yeah, and I think so much of that is just like it's a question. Obviously, like he just when he has to put up the ball on the floor, when he has to make decisions, when he has to read coverages, when he has to create an advantage that way, or just deal with like a help side rotation of what am I going to do on this live dribble. He just looks so far away from, what you need to be able to do to have the tools to be able to succeed in those positions. And it's a real question of like, is he going to be able to get there? Because there's a lot of room for improvement. Where are you at with that? And him doing some of those things, obviously, outside of just being a spot-up 3-point shooter.
It's hard to watch the playoffs this year and picture Noah Clowney not getting pushed around. Like just how physical, and I know it's kind of a cliche, whatever, but just the level of force applied on every possession by everybody, pushing, like shoving, this and that, like exploding through contacts. Man, like it's hard to see him anytime soon, at least being able to thrive in an environment like that. And, I'm not expecting him to be able to be a great like playoff player by next year, but just that's what really worries me. It's not that he missed twos even, it's just the way that he looked, often physically overmatched when dealing with contact. Like
and I would add in, like you said, the force of like what it looked like in these playoffs. And I'd say also just the speed of the game and the decision making. And look, like he was a second-year player last year. He was one of the youngest draft picks in NBA history when he got taken. So I think that there's so much room and potential for growth. But I'd just say like him coming in and being a guy who was kind of like this tweener big man center, and now he's playing power forward, and you need to be able to do some things offensively where you're able to put the ball on the floor and process and make some of these decisions. You have to do that end of it. And then you also have to be able to play with force, and obviously those things are correlated, but I don't know, like it's just, there's going to need to be a big leap. Like if he ever gets to that point, we're going to say like, wow, he made a huge improvement from where he was at, in his first couple of years in the season and not his first couple of years of his career. And I'm not sure like how confident I am that he gets there.
Yeah. The more we talk, the more I'm like, okay, maybe I'm at like a 4, but because it's really just the physical side of it. Like it feels, I mean, I'm not trying to put the nail in the coffin of his career or anything, but it feels like he would have been a lot more suited to play in like 2017.
Yeah.
Just because his best plays are when he's in space. Like I have, clipped all these transition defensive plays where he flies back and gets vertical, or the help side blocks. And I'm really willing to give him grace just because it was a hard year. They lost a lot. He had all these injuries. And then we even saw, regression in areas that you'd think he'd be, excelling at. Like there was none of that weak side rim protection. And some of that was the scheme change under Jordy. He was getting beat at the level, like off the dribble, stuff like that. So we'll zoom out soon, but just that's kind of why I'm worried, but generally willing to call it a wash as long as, we see improvement and stuff next year. But the biggest question, even more so than the threes, like he could come out in the first 2 weeks of next year and start 0 of 20 from three. And if he looks better playing through contact and just more able to, do what he wants physically, I'll consider it a massive success.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that Noah needs to improve at. There's a lot of things that are encouraging. What are those? And what are we going to be looking for this coming season? We'll talk about all that when we continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. But before that, want to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Guys, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Guys, Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've ever put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Guys, you ever think you were saving a certain amount and then realize you're coming up well short? Monarch can identify why. It helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. It can help you maximize investments, increase your savings rate, and easily review finances with your partner and or financial advisor. It can help you keep a clear view of your financial health week to week and long-term. Guys, don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, talking with Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily about Noah Clowney and the outlook for him, what we think he can be with the Nets. And Lucas, you said something interesting. It's something that I've thought about, before we closed the last segment of Noah seems like a guy that was better suited to play in like 2017. And I want to talk about that on the offensive side of the ball, and then we'll get into his defense. But it seems like to me, like 2017, you look at some years back, there were some of these guys who were just like, we put them in the corner, they're spot up 3-point shooters, like they're able to space the floor and create room for these guys who operate as ball handlers. And that's obviously huge. But I think if you watch the playoffs like this past year, it was just like there's so much more pressure on those periphery guys to do so much more offensively. Like the days of you just being like, just camp out on the perimeter, be a 3-point shooter, create space. It's like, no, we need guys to do more than that offensively now. The complementary guys need to have these secondary skills. And I think like if you look at the way the Pacers and the Thunder were playing, I know those are the two best teams in the league. It's like all of these guys are being run off the 3-point line. They're doing different things offensively. They're making high-level reads, quick decisions, playing with force, as you said. And I just feel like it's just different now than it was, say, 7-8 years ago in the NBA. And I'm not sure that that's a positive for the way that Noah's skill set is aligned right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a very nice way of saying he's bad when he has to put it on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, not bad. He made some like, I think he is generally actually decent understanding of what to do, like, especially later in the year. I'd see him get run off the line, 2 dribbles, pass across the court to create a 3. And like, I'm holding on to those very brief flashes as hope, but it's just about being able to like do it. If you have to play through any sort of contact, I commend the Nets for is his first season in Long Island. they played him at the 5 a lot. Like, he was the only big on the court, I should say, and he played drop coverage. And, he was in the middle of the floor, dribble handoffs, like typical 5 big man stuff. But he'd shoot a lot of threes and he'd get in the corners. And his best flashes were he had some like dribble spin move, dribble evade a defender, and finish at the rim, which were really exciting. But they realized that this guy is just not the 5, like, is not going to be able to be the biggest guy on the court. And I think that's why you've seen this really dramatic shift in his like usage and where he is. And he never plays pretty much without Nick or Dayron next to him. I think that was a smart call. Like, they gathered the data early in his career and they're like, okay, like, that's not going to happen. And I commend them for that, but it means that, yes, he will need to be making decisions on the perimeter. He's going to be an outside to in guy, not an inside to out guy where he's rolling and then like passing out of it. Like, he's going to need to dribble into the paint. And it's hard for me to see him keeping both the flexibility and like the agility that he occasionally shows while making the physical strength improvements that he will ultimately need to. It'll be very impressive if he can do both, is what I guess I should say.
Yeah, and it's not a slight to Noah, per se. Like, he's a guy, he's almost 6'10". Like, just the what's being asked of these guys offensively is just so incredible. Like, if you're a player who's that size, but you don't have like the size and the weight to you to play center and the skill set, you have to do so much offensively. And it's, for players at that size, it's really incredible that so many guys can do it nowadays in the NBA. And then, if we're going to talk about the defensive end of the floor, we saw like at the end of his rookie season when he did those things defensively, like he was protecting the rim, he was switching out onto the perimeter, he looked really active, he looked really comfortable. And then this past season, I think that regressed, a lot compared to that small sample size that we saw at the end of his rookie year. But like the block rate was way down. As you said, he was getting beat on the perimeter a little bit more. And he's another one of these guys, like a little bit of the tweener, as I said, which factors in offensively, but then also defensively. You need to be able to guard some of these quicker guys, and you're going to be in those situations. Just how do you feel about what he showed last season defensively? And is he going to be able to be a guy who's going to be able to hang in a NBA defensive scheme?
I think he should be. I mean, I think the physical stuff is a little worrisome, and just the strength thing that we keep going back to. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I think his entire body of work in that month at the end of his rookie season was a fluke. I mean, the weak side rim protection stuff was genuinely very impressive, and he stayed with these quick guards. And I mean, I don't really have a good explanation as to why we didn't really see any of it, other than like, it sucks that he twisted his ankle 4 times. I mean, that's where I'm a little bit more optimistic. Like, I do believe in his ability to do a few different things on defense at a high-ish level. But why do you think we didn't? I don't know. I can't really get myself to figure out why we didn't see a lot of it last year.
No, I think a lot of people, I think, struggle with that. And we're confused because we saw those flashes at the end of his rookie season, and there just really wasn't like any of it this past season. Like, if you look at, like, he blocked 0.7 shots per 36 minutes this past season. As you said, there were some struggles like defending at the level and sticking with some of these guys on the perimeter. Like, the easiest thing to say would be he twisted the same ankle. He rolled the same ankle 3 times, and that he was just a little bit gimpy out there. But in the beginning of the year, I don't think we really saw like that impact there. Like, you just talked about playing with force offensively, like defensively. I think that applies to, like, I don't think Noah's soft or anything like along those lines. I think like sometimes on the court, I wish his body language would improve a little bit more. Like, sometimes I think he looks like he's like a little bit mopey in some of those things and a little bit lethargic. And that might just be his affect. It might not like be about him. But like, we've talked to him, but I feel like I see that stuff show up on the court sometimes where I would like to see a little bit more just like force and, pep in his step that way, especially defensively.
Yeah, sometimes I just wanted to see him at points last year try and fail. Like, I would have liked to see him fail just doing, making the extra effort or trying to get to the rim or whatever. And I love that it seems to, everyone around him says he's really a sponge. He intakes everything really fast, and he's a strong learner. and what you have to be as a young player, this young of a draft pick, playing 1 year at Alabama, in a different system and role that he has now. But yeah, sometimes I would have just liked to see him get outside of his comfort zone, and how much of this stuff really tells you about the future of an NBA player's career. But when he got ejected in 2 techs and like Jeremy Sohan like waved him off the court, I was like, yeah, man, okay.
Yeah,
I'm with that.
I think everybody was with it, and you like to see a little bit of fire and things along those lines. And there's going to be a lot of room for improvement offensively, especially putting the ball on the floor, defensively, playing with a little more force and all those things along those lines. And he's going to have opportunity, but what is his role going to be, and how is he going to fit into this Nets rotation with a lot of new faces coming in? We'll talk about that when we close on Locked On Nets after a quick break. But before that, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you all for helping us out. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, talking with Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily about Noah Clowney's outlook this season and beyond. And obviously there's a lot of questions about how this Nets rotation is going to be configured with 5 rookie first-round picks coming in. You have Michael Porter Jr., Terrence Mann. You now have Haywood Highsmith. I've had a lot of people ask me where I think Noah is going to fit in. I've said I don't think he's going to have a starting role. I think he'll be coming off the bench, but there's just a lot of guys that are going to need minutes, and I think that Noah entering his 3rd season and the Nets kind of having more of a clock on his decision, that coming up sooner than some of these rookie guys, obviously, he might take precedence and priority. But what's your expectation for where he's going to fit into the rotation?
I do think that the Nets will, maybe very self-centered of me, align with what I've said so far, in that we need to see him. We need to see him get a lot of minutes. I'm not quite sure he'll start over, you have Zaire, you have Michael Porter Jr. These guys will get injured. I'm assuming there will be injuries, at some point, which up his minutes. But I think he'll always be the beneficiary of that. You need to see him. He's going to play minutes off the bench. He figures to me to be firmly in that top 8, top 7 consistently, and reaping the benefits of whenever there's an opening, because they say all these things about him. He works really hard and he loves to learn, and I don't doubt any of that to be true, but he's in his 3rd year, and now you really have to see him a lot. So regardless of maybe how well he plays, I expect him to get a lot of burn this year.
Yeah, I think he needs to. The Nets need to, collect more data on him. Obviously, with the injuries he battled last season, with him not playing a ton of minutes during his rookie year, the sample size is just not big enough for them probably at this point to make a decision, and they need to see him do more things and different looks. And if you look at the guys that are on the Nets roster, at his spot, I know his position is kind of unique, but if we're saying non-centers, bigger wings, forwards, you have MPJ there. You have Danny Wolf, I guess you could say, is there. And outside of that, the Nets wings are, I guess Zaire maybe could be in that position also. But I think of the group, he's definitely a guy who should be getting minutes consistently. And he's a guy who I would expect to be a priority. And Jordi Fernandez said that the Nets are going to go 10 deep probably consistently throughout the year. And as you said, I think there will be spots behind Noah that are shuffling consistently, but I do expect him firmly to be in the rotation. And, Lucas, when we close this out, we talked on his strengths, his weaknesses, the areas for growth. Just when you look at Noah Clowney this coming season, just if you were a fan, what's the top things that you would be looking out for?
Got to be physicality, got to just be physical development, and, some more variety when he puts the ball on the floor, just not being a total wallflower around the 3-point line. And then we do need to see some more of the defensive promise. I was on StatHead, compiling all these, list of teenagers to shoot this many threes and record this many blocks in a game in his rookie year. That needs to come back. What do you think? And this is not a great comparison, but why can't he ultimately be Dorian Finney-Smith? And I say this as someone who loved Dorian. Like, I wrote all these things about him, and I mean it genuinely. And I as a point of explanation, what is preventing that? Dorian's been great in that role, but just getting to that, because the way we've kind of been talking about him, I know the defense, it's a little more, you hope he is a rim protector rather than like a wing stopper. But
no, I think that's an interesting comp and like not a bad one at all, because Dorian's a guy who's developed into a, good 3-point shooter, I'd say, on high volume in the NBA. He's a guy who's defensively has a lot of versatility. He's not a guy who is natural putting the ball on the floor and doing any of those things along those lines. If I'm saying what is preventing it, I think that Dorian he's a freaking dog. Like, he is out there trying to dominate people physically consistently. And that's really been his calling card. And I'm not saying Noah doesn't or can't get there, but I think that there's a gap there, obviously, between what Dorian is, the mentality, the consistency of it, and what Noah has been up to this point. And I think that gap needs to close a lot if he's going to get to Dorian's level, because Dorian, the things he brings, it's motor, obviously, is a big part of it, physicality, attitude, all of that. And I don't think we've seen Noah, obviously, be at that point in terms of mindset up to this point.
Yeah. And also mindset and like, he's not as compact, and I think it hurts him. And Dorian is just this compact athlete that has long arms, but is able to get low and exert force. Whereas Noah, his length has allowed him. Yeah, it's allowed him to get to certain places, but like, certain deflections and all that. But it's also prevented him. He has this higher center of gravity and kind of a weak, like, torso, I guess, abs, chest, all that stuff. And that has hurt him. So that's, as I said before, I don't care if he misses his first 23s. Like, if he's improving at the other stuff, Nets fans should be really happy about that.
And Lucas, watching Noah will be a big point of emphasis throughout the year for fans and for us as well. And we're going to continue this on. We'll have more talk about the rotation pieces who are returning and what they could be long-term. But appreciate your time as always. And I'm sure you'll be back here on Locked On Nets soon. That does it for today's episode of Locked On Nets. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk with Lucas, touching on all things Noah Clowney, strengths, weaknesses, what fans should be hoping to see. If you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the content, smash that like button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Noah Clowney's long-term upside, whether you think he's going to be a piece with the Nets for the foreseeable future. Anything you guys can do to engage is much appreciated. Really helps with the algorithm. We got a lot more Brooklyn Nets talk. We got a mailbag episode coming tomorrow. We got training camp around the corner. So I'll hit on all that when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.